Welcome to the second video in my Isaac Overexplained series. In this episode we will delve into several interconnected topics: how Isaac calculates room rewards, how luck affects room reward altering trinkets and items, and considerations surrounding full clearing a floor. I have added video chapters if there is a specific section you're interested in. I poured a lot of effort into this video. In fact, this is my first video with a script. If you learned something in this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I don't do this for money or anything. These videos are just a hobby for me, so you don't really have to, but I enjoy seeing the number go up. I mean, come on. Let's delve into how Isaac calculates room rewards. Again, skip to the conclusions portion of the video if you just want to know what we can learn from all of this. So I actually built a spreadsheet for this, mainly because I'm weird and I like making spreadsheets, and also because I really like, visualizing things with data. So, how does Isaac calculate what it gives you when you clear a room? First, it generates a number using a formula which includes the player's luck. This is what I call the reward number, essentially a random seed for the room reward. Luck in this formula is capped at 0 through 10. So if you have negative luck, luck below 0, it doesn't matter. And if you have luck above 10, for instance if you have perfection and you get a luck up, it also doesn't matter. And a little side note, in multiplayer, this luck is calculated by simply adding all the players' luck together. So if you have negative 2 luck and plus 2 luck, evens out to 0. So that is this formula here. And this formula is also altered with the lucky toe and lucky foot, but I did not implement this. I can look into it if you're really curious. But this number is then used to determine the reward using the following index. This is what I'm calling the first pass reward. Basically, the first check the game goes through to figure out what you get. Then, because tarot cards, pills, and trinkets are in the same category, I generate a random number between 0 and 2 to separate them into these 3 substituents. So see, if this is tarot, pill, or trinket, assign it the number based on what this rolls. Then the game goes through multiple replacement checks, and this is where the meat of this video is. Batteries have a 5% chance of replacing the reward. If it isn't, nothing. Then a 2% chance for a sack to replace it is applied. This column is the stopping point for the analyses later in the video. You'll see what this means. But after this column, 33% of the hearts are replaced. This is one of the main aspects of hard mode, is replacing these heart drops. The columns beyond this were mainly for my own curiosity. We can scroll over here. So these are very generic categories. You have coin, bomb, heart. Isaac, whenever it generates a coin, for example, it randomizes the type of coin that you get. So that's what these columns are, is randomizing the coins, keys, bombs, and hearts until you get what I'm calling the expanded room rewards here. So using all these results, we can produce some tables, which is always fun. This sheet has 5,000 rooms simulated. I could have increased it. I honestly don't know why I didn't pick 5,000. As you can see, if we scroll down to the expanded room rewards table, in 5,000 rooms, we did not manage to get a single golden troll bomb. This kind of shows how rare some of these pickups are. Like, to get a natural golden bomb or a natural rotten heart versus getting a key from a room. About 17% of the time you're going to get a key. So you can feel free to pause and view these stats if you want. I added rooms per drop, which I think is pretty cool. So it's like, you know, if I really want a key, I'm gonna have to clear 5.5 rooms for that key. What effect does luck have on all this? Let's just crank our luck up to 10. Let's say we managed to go hitless for 3 floors, we got perfection. What happens? All the rooms will regenerate their rewards, and as you can see, the effect is pretty obvious. You get a lot more chests with high luck. The cap for this reward number essentially is a chest. That's the easiest way to think about this. You also get nothing a lot less often of the time with high luck, which is really good. So yeah, I mean, I think this is fairly intuitive. I feel like we all knew that luck gives you a lot more chests, but if you didn't, now you know. I made this luck effects tab, so these aren't continuously updating. I essentially just ran the sheet with different luck numbers. We can kind of compare the different counts of pickups we get. So as you can see, the biggest effect is the increased amount of chests and the decrease of basically everything else. You can see that the chance to get nothing steeply drops off with 5 luck. So again, just another interesting graph for my own curiosity. Let's talk about trinket replacement effects. So it is important to note on this sheet, as I mentioned earlier, that these values are before the hard mode replacement. So that is here, simply because the way Isaac steps through the room rewards, the trinket replacement actually happens before the hard mode. So for all these graphs, 1/3 of the heart results will be nothing. I think that some of these trinkets are an active detriment to your run, and you should not pick them up. The way these trinkets function, they only replace the room reward if you actually get a reward. They do not give you a 10% chance to replace nothing. If we look at Child's Heart, for example, we still get nothing the same amount of times, but we get 1,026 heart drops versus 706. So this is why we can look at this graph to visualize it more. So this graph, this pie chart, shows the base room rewards. Again, this is before hard mode heart replacement, but you can see it's kind of what you expect. You get a lot of hearts, a lot of keys, a little bit of chests, a little bit of batteries. If you look side by side with the Child's Heart graph, you can see that the heart section is expanded, but at the consequence of essentially crunching the probabilities of everything else down, if that makes sense. This is why, if you don't need hearts, I would not pick up Child's Heart. If you don't need pills, I definitely would not pick up Safety Cap, because you are replacing your other pickups with pills. So if you didn't know this, maybe this will make you think twice about picking up these certain trinkets. I also prepared these pie charts to show you something interesting with Guppy's Tail. I think we all agree that Guppy's Tail is pretty solid. If you don't know what it does, Guppy's Tail is a 1/3 chance to transform the reward into a chest. It also has a 2 in 9 chance to turn this reward into nothing. It's important to note that this roll happens only if you get a room drop in the first place. It cannot give you a chest from nothing. This graph depicts the effect of Guppy's Tail pretty well. Again, I think we all intuitively know this. I just like seeing it in a graph format. Essentially, Guppy's Tail starves your run of pickups. It increases your odds of getting nothing, but also greatly increases your odds of getting a chest. Something interesting here, which I don't know if this is correct because I can't find people talking about this online, is that Guppy's Tail might be a very bad item with high luck. This is the graph for base results with 10 luck. As you can see, you already get a chest 51.4% of the time. And then you go over to Guppy's Tail with 10 luck. Your chest percentage only goes up by 3%, but now you have a 1/4 chance to get nothing. So Guppy's Tail is like deleting all of those pickups that you would be getting for a marginal increase in chests. Again, I mean, I think this is how this works. Like, the math works out. I haven't seen anybody talk about this, so if I have a high luck run, I'm really going to think twice about picking up Guppy's Tail. Hello, this is me after editing the majority of this video. A couple things I wanted to touch on. One is, I know that the chests just being chests is boring, but I could not find the spawn rates of different chests, like what your odds are of getting a like a golden chest, for example, or a red chest. And also, I thought about maybe like simulating opening the chest and seeing what you would have gotten, but that would have just spiraled into... So yeah, my analysis stopped at just chests. Same thing with sacks. I could have like simulated opening them to see what you got, but it would have just been too much. Also, I want to shout out the wiki for this pseudocode. My spreadsheet is basically this pseudocode in a spreadsheet, and it says it was taken from this guy's GitHub. Pretty awesome, so thank you, Blade, BLCD, or Will. This helped me out a lot when making this video. Now we are moving on to the section of the video about full clearing floors. I'm just going to probably throw up some gameplay in the background. This section is just going to be me talking. So, what is the main goal of an Isaac run? Obviously, you'd say it's to win the run. However, I like to approach the game as minimizing the risk that you lose. I mean, this sounds a little bit esoteric, but I think a lot of people don't take pills. Well, why is that? Well, it's because the risk is not worth the potential reward in a lot of people's opinions, and I also agree with that. Your goal is to minimize risk to increase the probability that you win. The entire game is a balance of taking risks for potential rewards. You make these decisions all the time throughout a run without even thinking about it. Think of opening an item room. This is a decision in itself. Do you use a key to get a random item room item? Of course, a vast majority of the time, 99% of the time, the answer is yes. The cost of one key is much lower than the benefit of a random item room item. If there was a key block in the way of a blind item pedestal, you're opening that puppy 99% of the time. A decision that is less concrete is the choice of full clearing floors in Isaac. This is constantly changing. When you first start exploring a floor, obviously you're forced to find the boss room to progress, so that isn't really a decision. However, once you kill the boss, why do you not immediately leave? Well, what if there's an item room and a shop to visit? The risk you adopt by exploring more rooms, the risk here being more damage, is usually worth searching for the item room. Even after you've located all the end rooms, you should still full clear even if you don't have an active item. I like to view each room as an opportunity. Each room you enter and clear is essentially 18% of a key, 14% of a bomb, or 13.7% of some money, even though it's weird to think about it like that. And once you get better at playing the game, the risk of taking damage in a room decreases, and this choice becomes even more obvious. Something interesting is that hard mode makes the floor maps bigger. This is why you might have heard some people say that at a certain skill level, hard mode is actually easier than normal mode. If you aren't taking damage in rooms, you actually want to find more rooms. You don't mind the decreased heart drops if you avoid enough damage. Now, I mean, I still don't think hard mode is actually easier than easy mode, than normal mode, but it is an interesting thought experiment to think about, with all the effects of hard mode, such as, making small batteries replace the regular size ones more often and things like that. It is an interesting thought experiment if hard mode is actually easier once you get to a certain point. Anyways, I am a strong advocate for fully clearing every floor up to depths 1 once you reach a certain skill level, unless you have a reason not to. Isaac runs have 2 main phases in my opinion. The first phase lasts from basement 1 to the start of depths 2. We'll call that the gathering phase. Your goal is to get as many items, hearts, pickups as possible, all while avoiding damage. However, when you're preparing to leave depths 2, you start aiming towards one primary goal: survival. Minimizing the damage you take to make it to late game. This is where the calculus changes a lot on whether you clear rooms or not, especially in the later chapters where all damage is doubled. Pickups become much less valuable in the late game, except for certain cases. For example, coins are essentially useless once you stop seeing shops. But if you have a stairway or money equals power, they still hold value. But as a whole, you don't really need bombs, keys, or coins after depths 2. In conclusion, you need to ask yourself before you full clear if you're confident in your capabilities to clear these rooms without taking damage. This question reminds me a lot of something I encountered when playing Slay the Spire. As a new player, I was avoiding fights, opting for more shop visits or picking the random events. Why would I want to get in more fights and take more damage? Well, it turns out that adding new cards in your deck is worth the risk. It completely changed how I played once I watched a video where someone described it to me like that. I view full clearing in Isaac the same way. It is worth the risk a vast majority of the time until you get to the womb. Alright, hopefully you learned something from my diatribe. Let me know if you like this kind of videos, and if you do, let me know if there's a certain topic you think deserves a deep dive. Again, I wouldn't consider myself an Isaac expert, but I have a couple hours under my belt, and I like exploring the in-depth game mechanics. Until next time.